Hello, everyone. Let's get set up here. See if this is working. Yes. All right. So I don't want to steal Andy's thunder, but I actually read a PDF file on the presentation, and I got this quote. Emotions are an integral part of the brain. Hopefully, in the end, I make the connection on how I actually got every angle approved within Metso. But it is a journey, so hang on. Hopefully, I'll take you in the right amount of time through this journey. But first, just a little bit of background about me. So my name is Julian Moraes. If you have problems saying my last name, just ask for more rice and you'll get it. I was born in Brazil. I was very fortunate enough to be able to live in the UK and travel around Europe when I was very young. So that's why my English is quite well. I don't have too much of a accent. But I've been working, 13 years with SAP in various roles, from consultant to project management to process development, all within the SAP framework. But I have to say, I was fortunate enough. I always worked in companies, so Eli Lilly, Joy Global, and recently now Metso. So I haven't been one of those consultants that keep changing and you provide, the 2-month solution and then you're out and then the person suffers. Usually what I say, I then have to follow up and say, yeah, this really works. I'm currently director of the sales process and platform. Metso has gone through a lot of transitions. I've taken up this role just recently this year, but I've kept my every angle baby, as I call it, within Metso. How I best describe myself. So I don't know if you guys worked with Brazilian, but usually this is how we plan things when we're jumping off with a cliff. First we jump, then we think about the parachute. But that's how people actually associate me. This is very important when you're going into some decision making or you're going into a steering committee. Brazilians are usually late, so if you start a meeting at, as one of the colleagues here was saying, you put it for 10:30 is about the start time for us. But people actually do think when I walk in the room, and my boss actually thought exactly like this. So now a little bit about where I work, Metso. It is a Finnish-based company. We are the leading provider of process equipment to mining, construction, and oil and gas. We develop intelligent solutions for sustainability and profitability. Basically, in short, we make mining equipment, okay? But not only the equipment, we provide service to that equipment, which is becoming more and more important in this day and age. Anyone can manufacture, there's a lot of low cost, but making sure that you can provide the right service at the time your customer wants, that's what the key benefits are. Around 16,000 employees in 50 countries, so we're a very large multinational organization. What's our promise? Expect results. So delivery time, I think one of the presentation here is regarding Eric's, that customer satisfaction. How do you measure that? It's quite hard for you to put it in a quantitative business case, but that's something that becomes very important when I started thinking about, well, how do I actually make the business case for this? So in trying to explain, I said, well, let me just put a picture on what does Metso deliver. Basically, the crushing and screening, we get very large rocks, we process them, and then we transport them. This whole process is very complex. So we use both internal manufacturing, a lot of external procurement based on our engineering drawings. So you can imagine this is pretty capital intensive, requires a lot of knowledge on what minerals we are processing. It's very different if you're processing or getting iron ore out of a mine at 6,000 meters in Chile than it is if you're doing something in India. So you need very different machines to do that. So a lot of our machines are make to order. There's where everyone thinks, oh, just standard, crusher, and then you screen out and you get gravel. Well, it's a little bit more complex, and that's a little bit where we get into that supply chain analysis. So where are we based? Globally, we have a variety of customers, big mining companies, all over the world, and we need to be close to them. So performance of our machines is very high. If a machine shuts down, you can shut down the operations at the mine site. If you shut down the operations at the mine site, the company is losing money. You're not processing. So you can think of gold processing in South Africa. Well, if you're not processing anything, you're not making money. So reliability is very, very important for Metso. So this gives you a little bit of background on Metso. They are Finnish-based. Culturally, they're about as far apart as they can be from Brazil. We're very extroverted. Finnish culture is very introverted. So that's why that differentiation is very important. You get someone like me that may come in front of an auditorium like this and speak. If you get a Finnish person, it's going to be very different. But those are things that you need to culturally understand also. I had a difficult time actually understanding that when I first entered Metso. So Metso has also gone through a very big transformation phase. So I'm not going to talk too much about Metso. That's not what we're here to do. But you need to understand where Metso came from. So pre-2001, a very diversified company with various different small businesses around the world. We've gone through a huge transformation in these past 13 years. So Metso and the Swedish firms Vedala joined together and created a conglomerate which basically covered the mining business, construction, oil and gas, and paper. And in this last part, we just divested paper last year. So bigger company, now we're a smaller company, and we're focusing now on basically the mining, construction, oil and gas. So now the deliveries and everything that we need to do is on a focus group. You have a return on equity on capital employed now that needs to be above 30%, very attainable, but things that we're going to use every angle for. During this time, we went on a little journey called SAP. I'm sure everyone who's implemented SAP here must have their war stories, good or bad. First attempt from 2005, 2007, huge process mapping sessions. Get 60, 70 people in a room, do your order to cash, purchase to pay, financial reporting, and all of this. Great, excellent job, but it really didn't lead to nowhere. So project stopped. New management came in 2008, and we said, well, let's embark on the SAP journey again. But there were a couple of differences this time. New management was actually a part of I would say, a bigger part of the steering committee. So first line business area president and first line management participated in those steering committees. Decision making was always done in that team, who did not participate in the day-to-day project problems. So there was a focus on delivering. Scope management was very important. So while there were a lot of requirements, a lot of them made sense, and especially from a reporting perspective, they weren't done. So it did create a barrier between what was delivered from a tool and what the business actually expected. But in the end, it was okay. It was still meeting management's vision on delivering, putting in a common system throughout the globe. Again, this design and build done more by a smaller technical team based on the work that was done in the first attempt. Technically, the system worked. That's what you get a lot from the IT system. Well, technically, it works, but when you put the complexity around it, your simple questions that you formulated your requirements on aren't that true. But don't sweat the small stuff. Deal with the problems. Well, okay. It was very good. Actually, we implemented 19 countries. We started off, amazingly enough, with India and Brazil, which are probably the worst 2 countries you ever want to start an implementation with. But, we said we could do it. So from 2008, 2012, 19 implementations were done. Today we have over 92% of Metso revenue. Now it's a little bit higher. 97% is the number right now, going through SAP. One instance, one platform globally, everyone is using. I started off as a project manager. I then went to the program manager, so I've been participating in a lot of these implementations, especially on the project steering committee. And this was my favorite phrase throughout the project. So I'm sure everyone has, I understand your issue. In this case, I adapted a little bit. I understand your change request. I feel your pain, but it's not my problem. Don't sweat the small stuff. It'll get corrected later. This was kind of the, for me, for a Brazilian, when you have a problem, before you finish the problem, we're already working on the solution. So for me to take and actually understand that this was a key part of, what we needed to deliver, it was the SAP. Put it on. Let's make sure we get everyone on the same platform. We talk the same language. We all say the same thing. We all share the same problems. That was very important for management. This, to me, was something someone started, let's put in a change record. Let's do this. I actually have never been more complimented on an annual review until I actually said this. So it was interesting. But, what's the business side in this? 2012, we've got most of the, most sites already on SAP, all our major manufacturing, all our major DCs, and our smaller sales organizations on SAP. But we still had a challenge with the current model. We achieved a great success, I have to say, in implementing SAP. But the communication and how people use the system still generated a lot of frustration in our users. They couldn't do their work, or they didn't know what they needed to do. So it was something that wasn't it didn't provide a lot of pleasure for them. We spend huge amount of hours in downloading data and putting it in VLOOKUPs and Excels and providing an enormous amount of KPIs to upper management. Do we have a BI tool? Yes. But BI tool really was, strategic. What will our orders be for this month? What was our sales for this month? But it didn't connect to the operations that well. If your orders weren't going the way you thought it was, okay, correct that red bar. And everyone would say, where can I get that data? BI, we use SAP BI, didn't really provide that detailed analysis. If you started to putting all the orders, it would take a long time. You would still need to download the data. You still wouldn't know if the order was still open or closed for that side. VA05, I think, was the reference that Kirk's made this morning. We have designed, I think, over 100 reports in BI. And in parallel, we did a lot of things in Excel. In the end, this created, a lot of user dissatisfaction. At least in our organization, this is something that affects adoption. You can even say, well, it doesn't matter if people adopt SAP or not. I think it has a very important level, this adoption, because it drives discipline. SAP is all about discipline. If you follow the right process, if you do the right transactions, if you do the goods receipt, the goods issue, and all of that, it works great. Well, but it became a everyday tool to meet finance reporting. So, what to do? In 2012, I made the leap from the IT side, joined the business side with very clear goals. This was the main one. Everyone wanted to feel in control, which was one of the things that we just saw in that presentation, scope of the operations. What can I do during the month to get better revenue, to get orders out the door, to deliver on our promise? So when we say expect results, that's really what our customers can expect. But there is no silver bullet. There's process, there's system problems, and there's organizational issues. Metso has a very complicated matrix reporting line, so you need to also deal with that. And we said, what do we do? Start over? Don't worry. Technically, the system is working. And we could say that. It did work. Everything was running smoothly, but users were very unhappy. So we started talking about, when I joined the business, I said, well, I need to find something that fixes, not as a tool, but it gives us insight to our processes globally and fast. So IT was going through a transformation phase where we had a new strategy, new CEO, so it wasn't something they wanted to dedicate a lot of time. Another tool, a tool won't fix your process problems. Many tools in the market, and then I came, I received an email from a colleague in South Africa who met with Willie from Every Angle, and I saw this presentation that said, okay, this is a silver bullet. First thing, no way in hell could Every Angle really do this, period. Another IT company who promises everything. But while not very logical, if you read it, I said, well, it does address my concerns, and everything they put in the material is actually something that happens in Metso. And this is the phrase to me that catches it. Contextualized data in SAP and made it simple for business users. So just that simple backlog report saying if you have late deliveries, if it's stopped in your distribution center, if it's pollution, or if it's late, it was great data. You could act on it fast. This process of taking from the initial idea to actually getting a proof of concept and then a pilot took around 6 months. And this is really how I took that pilot and actually got agreement from business management to actually approve the now solution we have. So it's now part of our everyday process in SAP. Key, communication. Keeping all parties with some vested interest aligned. So I had to get the IT organization. I had to get management organization behind this also. And I needed a couple of key places to start this. I think one of the easiest and fastest way for you to get those low-hanging fruits is in your distribution centers. Distribution centers or SSO, and we said, well, let's do a pilot and target. Focus on one area of Every Angle. As you saw, there's a lot of things you can do with Every Angle, but we said that's the low-hanging fruit, and that's where a lot of the complaints come from, especially if you have late deliveries. So in that process, very focused group, had management approval, Everyone knew what they needed to do and what the target was. So we did have a pilot phase, ran for 3 months. We had a lot of business users that were involved in this, so it wasn't an IT-driven project. So it wasn't a tool-based project. To get approval, this is really important. I've always kept Timo, he is our BI director, so he was always on board. He was always in the know about what I was planning to do. And the idea wasn't to replace our BI tool, wasn't really to do anything with SAP BI and say, okay, it doesn't really work or doesn't address the user issue. Deployment was done, amazingly enough. 41 of the 43 people we identified basically picked up the tool on the first day and started using it. With not a lot of training. If you look in our current system, we have about 70,000 open line items every day in terms of delivery. For us to analyze that in BI, it would probably, I'm not even sure we could do it. Just the download time alone would be impossible. This took us about 14 seconds to run globally. So the strategy on getting everyone on the same instance and being able to run a global delivery report on all our items and know instantaneously if they were late, if you had no planning data, if it was stuck in the DC, if it was stuck in your warehouse, or if it was a customer requested late delivery. I mean, till this, you could say, well, we have 3,000 line items to deliver in one DC. 500 have been there for about 6 months. Why? Well, it was a customer requested, late delivery. Well, that's still money that's stopped. So we need to address those things. It's inventory that's blocked. It's capital that's not really generating any cash for us. This also allowed us to do some other tests, which is important from an IT point of view, which is the support. So we actively tested the every angle support by asking new either fields or building data for us, because of course we have Z tables also. And this was actually a great experience. Very different from trying to add something in our standard queries. You would need to put it through a change request. Takes about 3 to 4 months, and by the time it's done, you don't even remember what your question was. So from a user perspective, it's that now we get into that the user doesn't even put a change request in. They just say, let me just do it in Excel or something else. So this created a pretty good feeling in people. They said, wow, really? Performance was good. It was fast. You could answer your own questions without having to, ask for Excel sheets from 13 different places in the world. So we went to quantify the value in this, and we had 2 sites that didn't do this. Brazil, why? Brazil is probably one of the largest sites in Metso. They have a very big IT organization there, and they had created this massive Excel spreadsheet in there, which was nothing else than what Every Angle provided out of the box. So they had something similar. Strangely enough, if Every Angle does not work today, or if it doesn't run during the night, I get a very angry phone call also in the morning from Brazil and saying, why isn't this running? Because it provides intelligence. It provides that late deliveries. In 3 months' time, from these DCs, and we had Australia, South Africa, US also, Sweden. We had this monthly, and this is not based on my estimated results. This was based on DC managers' feedback. Around 100,000 euros in savings per month. I was a little bit surprised. I'm like, nah, can't really be. And as you actually interviewed and talked about what was their experience, they were actually amazed. And why doesn't this come with SAP? It seems like should be native to the SAP tool, and it isn't, which makes it even harder for you to try to sell every angle within a company and say, we really need this tool to make our operations better. You had some other key elements that we also discussed, inventory reductions. So in South Africa, there is a specific triple BEE company that they had to do local operations. So you need to create 2 company codes, and you need to keep inventory in 2 company codes. Well, this already allowed us to significantly decrease that capital that we keep in inventory. In complexity, we didn't even put this in the business case, but it became a good showcase. Australia had put in a demand for a new equipment based off of the US. But, if you just put that supply chain and how you do the MRP planning, it gets a little bit technical. Well, if you don't have the machine, your supply chain logistics has to go to the US. Well, it was a $1 million machine, and we actually had it sitting in Singapore. So with every angle, that stock out was easily for us to do this. So we actually canceled a PO from Australia. We got it from Singapore because it was just staying there. Simple things, low-hanging fruit that we were able to use every angle. So I was like, man, this is going to be easy. And limited scope. We haven't even been using this for finance and controlling. We weren't using this for manufacturing. So as we expand this, I guess this is going to be pretty easy. So we did a checklist of how every angle is easy to use, very fast, unique intelligence, cross-module reporting. Technically, this really didn't interfere with our IT infrastructure. It could be something that could be used in our vision. Easy to add Y tables, fast, and easy installation. So it did take 1 day, and we deployed it within 1 week to all the 7 locations we had. Return on investment, I'm not sure if we were the first, or at least we used that business value calculator from EA. I don't need to say, every time you use these business value calculators from a consulting firm, the numbers are quite high, so we could make millions on this. I was very skeptical in using this, and I talked also to Jacques when we initially used this, which said, hey, you can decrease your inventory by 12 million out of the box. I said, you know what, let's not use those kind of numbers. I prefer to base it on the numbers that I use from actual sites. We also had other projects, IT projects. One, we called it Prime, which covers your inventory optimization. So what inventory levels should we have at what DC locations? We also have a purchasing project, which we're using e-procurement. And everyone was talking, well, where does every angle sit in this? And I said, right in the middle. It's operations, it's analytics. It gives people the power to make decisions. So I had a pretty convincing business case in my hand. I thought it was pretty well prepared, had buy-in from everyone. So it was, let's approve the project and start rolling this out. But when it came to the actual decision-making, it was put on hold. And I just didn't know why. Logically, this was the best thing that could happen for Metso in a long time. And it addressed key fundamental questions that we had. But it didn't work. So getting an extroverted like me, which gets very excited and talking about things, and in a very culturally conservative introverted people in Finnish terms, I had to rethink the strategy in terms of getting this approved. So where the connection started making, where when I was reading Andy's paper on this to say, okay, how do I make a connection to this? This was probably one of the key things that I conveyed in terms of actually getting the tool approved. trust. You know, even though I went through the SAP project and implementation, it was very hard. And, you know, I always start off with the phrase, I am your cause of all your problems in that company code or location I go, because SAP usually wreaks havoc. People trusted me. So when I said, you know, this is something that can really answer and can really drive customer satisfaction also, people kind of took a listening to this. Communication, making sure people are actively and constantly filled in with, hey, this is what every angle can do. This is what every angle is already doing for us. The next two are probably, you know, how I actually got the business case mostly approved, which is it addressed concerns, and I aligned the expectations of the DC manager and the senior vice president of our supply chain. That was the key memento where they said, you know, if you put this, customer satisfaction and our reliability will go up. And then talking about emotions, this was one of the phrases that, you know, was given to me by a DC manager from Sweden. The feeling of having a very good control, thanks to the sales and purchasing reports, are extremely useful. I use it for my weekly meetings with my managers, and we all love it, period. That was pure emotion right there in terms of why he adopted this tool. There was really nothing else I needed to do. I don't need to prove it with numbers. You know, I don't need to logically say it. But this was the phrase that kind of tipped over the decision making. So in all, while very logical and easy to use, at least my experience within Metso in trying to get this approved, and it was about a year or a little bit over a year project for me to approve it internally within Metso. This is something that plays a very high part in you selling this. You need to fill in the emotional part of this in the background, which is why you need to understand a little bit of the history, and hopefully I walked you through it. Afterthought, when I actually was talking to one of the senior vice president who was the controlling, so he controls the budget. This was actually one of the biggest parts in actually approving this. It wasn't really the financial numbers, it was all the feedback, and this is just the out of the box. I didn't change the wording or anything, but this was just the feedback I got from my managers of using this. More emotional than logically stated reasons or percentages, increase in efficiency, or anything else. And this was the tipping point. So this was how I got EA approved. We're currently deploying it globally to all of the DCs, SSOs. Of course, we expanded the scope. Finance is getting into this more and more. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. But hopefully this was something that was intuitive in the sense of not about the tool, but how new customers can get it approved, since it's always a question from IT or management, but doesn't SAP offer that already? Thank you very much.